Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this week's episode of the Gym Owners Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Stone. Over there is John Fairbanks. How we doing, John?
I'm feeling excellent, Tyler. Thanks
Good.
for asking.
Real good.
Yeah.
This week's going to be a little less actionable stuff and a little more game show, current events conversation type shit. So we've kind of gone over perusing the internet of a few of these subjects. One of the things we've come up on is there's been a little bit of stuff in the news over the last few months in the gym owners discussion boards and such about how hard and fast your rules are. Where do you set your boundaries for certain things, whether it's client behaviors, coaches behaviors, things that are and aren't allowed in your gyms. It's a matter of setting expectations and boundaries early on, and what hills are you willing to die on for the sake of your gym, your clients, your customers? What maybe are you willing to be flexible on? Before we get started, make sure you follow the show on Instagram at the Gym Owners Podcast, wherever you're listening to this, whether it be YouTube, Spotify, Apple. Please go in, leave us some kind words and a 5-star review. You want to work with us directly and have us help you get your gym up and running, kicking ass, and doing awesome for you and your clients and your bank account. Send us a message directly at the Gym Owners Podcast on Instagram, or you can shoot us an email at thedudes@hackyourgym.com. John, let's get right into it. When I opened my gym the first time, I had some things that, while I think there were some rules, offerings, whatever you would call it, that I think were very valuable for our market, it became such like a cause for headaches for me that I would need to be there less to continue to allow these things, or I probably wouldn't do it again in hindsight. A big one here. Let's just get right into it. I'm gonna pull up my list. One that has been in recent discussion is, especially for group classes, I've seen two different articles about this, one resulting in a lawsuit, the other resulting in some nasty fucking social media posting by the client. People show up late to your group class. There's all sorts of ways to approach this. Way number one is, hey, come on in. Yep, just work in, get started, right? That's
right.
Also pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
Option number two, no, you're late. You can't wait till the next class time. I don't know what to say. It seems a bit harsh. Option number three is some sort of like punishment, as though we're late for football practice or a team meeting or something like that.
Yeah, like 50 burpees to get access.
You wouldn't believe the amount of gyms, like adult gyms with adult clients who pay real money, that will just make like some accountant that comes in 6 minutes late because they had to drop their kid off, like make them run laps or do burpees and shit. It's fucking crazy. I hope that that's like hyperbolic stories from 12 years ago. You know what I mean? But it's very common, I've learned, in the martial arts space, like specifically in like jujitsu gyms, is we had one here that was known for that. Like people would get there and they'd be 5 minutes late. I mean, they have jobs. It's not even on the client for being late. If your time schedule just falls in a place that they can't always make it to early every fucking time. Right. They would make like adults like run laps and shit when they're late for class.
Could you imagine?
Fucking insane. By the way, like, I'm 40 years old. There is no man, woman, or otherwise that is coming up to me because of anything that I've done that is going to force me to go do some sort of like physical punishment. That's fucking crazy to me.
And like it, even if how often, but here's what, like, I guess it comes down like how disruptive is the individual, I guess. Like it seems like it's so specific.
Is the class.
Right. Like I can get like personal training. Like if you're one-on-one, I totally can see where you're not going to punish the person, but you'd be a little bit more strict. But if you're like a group class and it's supposed to be.
I have a client who's late 5 to 12 minutes late every time. Twice a week I have this client and I don't care. She just gets 15 minutes less though.
Right.
It's okay. It is what it is. I don't know what to say. I don't make a stink about it. It's how this person is. There's a old Mike Birbiglia stand-up bit. John, you and I are both on-time people. And this whole bit goes, because the thing that late people don't understand about us on-time people is that we fucking hate them. Absolutely fucking hate them. But the thing is late people, regardless of the reason that they're late, sometimes people are late for a reason. Sometimes people are late because they're late people. And that's just the way that they are. Now, if a person is late just because they're late, believe it or not, they're not disrespecting you. I known late people. I've known really good friends who are late people. I got good friends who are like island people. You know what I'm
Oh,
saying? Island folk.
Mormon Standard Time
Mormon
is a
island folk.
thing.
Yep.
Oh yeah,
Late as fuck every time,
always.
like clockwork. It's
Yeah.
it's the most consistent, the most on time thing that they are is late consistently. This friend of mine, and so this is just the way that it is. And I've explained it to him, and he gets it, but it doesn't change the behavior. It's just not disrespect. If I will tell you this, John, if I am 15 minutes late to something I've told you to that I was going to be at, and I don't send you a message within 1 minute of the original start time saying, hey, I am running late, whatever, right? If you don't get that heads up by the original commitment date, I promise you that is me purposely, like, I actively don't give a shit about you, your time, or anything. I really mean it. I really mean it. I will send that message early just because, like, hey, I'm not normally like this, but I will be a couple minutes late.
Yeah, or
Don't
something
do that.
terrible has happened to you.
About you or your time.
Right.
But I will tell you this: normally, if you're going to institute some sort of punishments or what, negative incentive, disincentives, whatever you call that,
Yeah.
you're doing that to alter the behavior, right? You're doing that in hopes that those people will start to show up on time. However, let me tell you a thing or two about late people. They're going to be late no matter what. So all you're going to do with the people who are just habitually who are late people, it's in their personality. You're just going to create friction between you and them forever until they leave.
Well, and it's not just, and this is also the purpose of the conversation where it's like, it's not just between you and them.
No.
It's you, them, and every motherfucking person they know. Because if you're this shitty, because what popped it on our radar was right a gym in what was it, Australia, right? She sues the fitness center for
Yeah.
16 grand after being denied entry. And here's the biggest cop out. Again, I don't know. I don't bother to know any more about the story. I don't fucking care. But it's like her gym contract specified that late entry might be refused, and a rule she claimed to be unaware of. People don't read the fucking terms and conditions, motherfucker. Like it's like that, like the idea that like, well, we put it in the contract. It's like, dude,
Yeah. Come on.
really? That's it? Like that's the thing. Like it's yeah, whatever. It's like those jokes. Like and I haven't looked into this either, but it's like that the jokes that are going around of like the Disney Plus contract.
Yeah, where like if you get hurt on a Disney property, you've already waived all your rights.
Yeah.
Yeah, just because it's in there doesn't mean anything either, by the way. Some of those things regarding terms, conditions, it's like I can slap a sticker on the back of my car that says not liable for accidents. Like people put up in their garage sales and shit all the time. It's like, yeah, that doesn't mean anything either, but you can say whatever you want to say, but the law still is the law. Now, in the case of tardiness, which I mean, this is all I'm telling none of you guys what to do. Just be fucking reasonable, I guess would be the thing. But like, if you do have a class that is very well structured, and maybe there's things involving partners pairing up, and or maybe the whole thing flows from beginning to end. Like I've been a part of some group fitness classes that move. Like once things start, everything is going, and you cannot really like plug someone in the middle without holding up everybody. And especially in smaller studio gyms, it's tough. It can be distracting. It's it is selfish on behalf of the late person because of the way it affects everybody else. But again, are you willing to take the good with the bad on this issue? Because the bad, if you're going to put your foot down, by the way, have a conversation about it before you dole out physical punishment. I think that's the dumbest thing you can do. It's like, well, you owe me fucking 1 mile before we can get started. Well, that just makes them later. Right. And on the martial arts side, I remember hearing that this gym was doing this stuff, and these are adults who are like, you should just be glad that I came. And that does end up kind of being, I think, the reasonable approach, which is if someone is late and they come in and especially at least they're just understanding like, hey, sorry, I'm a little late. It's whatever. It's like, yeah, come in. We're glad you made it. I'd rather have you be 20 minutes late than not come in at all ever. And a lot of these places too only offer the one. It's not like there's a redundant class right after, at least in functional fitness programs. Like usually your 5 p.m. class is the same as your 6 p.m. class, is the same as your 7 p.m. class. So if you do get bumped back, you're still doing the same shit, getting the same workout, same product. A lot of martial arts stuff, that's not the case. So like if you're 10, 15 minutes late, you don't have something you can fall back to. So it's just a thing that happened. I think it's very silly. It's a silly hill to die on, but I can imagine scenarios in which your product would require it. I mean, what if you were I don't know. What if you're like a rowing club, John, where you have like people waiting, you have groups where everyone's signed up ahead of time. You
Yep.
have everybody sitting in a boat waiting for the fourth, and the fourth is 15 minutes late, and now it costs that is real.
Sure.
But what are you going to do? I just don't think we're in the business of having actual authority over people. And I think that's one of the big red flags I see when people get into coaching is that they get into coaching so that they can like position themselves as a person who has authority. Like it's like if I'm forcing you to respect me by this title. Much like when people get out of med school, they call themselves I'm doctor, 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 doctor. This is doctor. No, no, no. It's doctor. And that becomes this like pretentious thing. It's like, well, bitch, you're not my doctor. So fuck off. Like, I don't fucking owe you anything. What are you talking about? You ain't nothing to me. You're just a guy telling me what to call you. I don't give a shit. I ain't gonna call you nothing. That's crazy to me.
And the probably the most, as with everything, it's gonna be shocking, right? Coming from us, which is like just it's the dude test, right? Like, are you being a dude about it?
Can you be a dude about this?
Like, be a fucking dude about it. Like, if you're not being a dude about it, then you're being a bitch about it. And the one thing is like, and again, think about it from any perspective, which is like, are you being a Karen about this? Because if you are, you're going to create one.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things where it's like either you're going to be a Karen about it or they are. But if you're being a dude about it, then you can kind of handle most of it. But if someone's going to be like a real cunt about it, then fuck them. Like, get rid of that client. Like, again, you
if
don't
someone's
want
late and distracting and they're entitled and you don't like them, then yeah, you can give some warnings. So like, I don't know, man. I'm kind of not don't want to work with you anymore. Like I do get that.
And that is always like the reminder that comes back to maybe some business advice, right? Is the idea where we've said this for years, and it came from working with some gym owners that were one of those early on, right? This is when they just got started. They were working in a friend's garage, not even their garage. They were borrowing a friend's garage. They now have their own brick and mortar location. And it was early on. It was a husband and wife team. And we were talking with them, and they were just lamenting about all of these problems that they had, and they felt like they were stuck and they couldn't move in the business on this, that, and the other. And we just said, well, then just don't do those things.
Yeah, it's your business.
And the wife was like, oh, like, it's like, yeah, remember, guy, like this is your fucking thing. You get to make the rules. Like
you didn't shackle
handcuffs.
yourself to a fucking immovable object. Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Now,
so, yeah,
some of these things, John, there's other ones that there's maybe a little bit of gray area here. This next one I want to touch on is kids in your gym.
sure.
Maybe not kids training, but like people bringing their children, leaving them, just sitting them down. Now, this is assuming you don't have
Actual child
care that's there. For example, our facility, we had just kind of an area, a very large lounge. It was kind of like sectioned off, completely sectioned off, had TV, toys, whatever, big giant sectional couch and whatever else you needed, right? But it was sort of a separate area, but the kids could all see the parents could also they could see the workout floor. Now, 90% of the time that worked great. Honestly, I do believe it would be very difficult for a lot of those members to make it in those.
Well, that's probably why you did it.
That's literally why I did. Well, because I don't know what, this in that type of gym, especially when you do have husbands and wives coming in together a lot of the time, like it does make it so much easier. We're in a smaller market like the market we're in, where I don't have an endless supply of fucking people to get. If I had 250,000 people in my area, I would love, John, and if I had to do this again and I was in that market, I would love to be, no fucking kids. I don't want them screaming for their parents midway through. I don't want them throwing tantrums. I don't want, while the parents are working out, the kids to get into some episode and then the parents like expect me to go over there and shut it down because those parents fucking burpees and box jumps are more important than tending to their own kids, which happens a lot.
Sure.
A lot. Or the kids just flying off the handle and the parents treating it like a kid on a fucking airplane, which is like, well, I'm used to it. Everybody else will get used to it. And that sucks. And I wouldn't want to do that again just because it sucks for me. Like I'd do it, but if I didn't need those people, that specific demographic, the people who don't want to pay for daycare at 7 p.m. or 6 p.m. or whatever else, they don't have somewhere to drop their young kids, young families. It's already hard enough to work in physical activity. It's hard. So that's why we did it. And I would do it again in this marketplace, but boy, would it have been nice if it didn't have to. Way too many headaches. Honestly, a lot of risk. You think that most people's kids are respectful and well-behaved, and in reality, it's less than half that are. You know what I mean? Just for the sake of being in public and not acting a fool. The amount of times I had to run kids off of the fucking while there's barbells dropping out of the sky.
Sure. Save a kid's
You know
fucking
what I
life.
mean? It's like,
Oh, yeah.
and then I got to tell the parent, this fucking kid, like, it's not my fault your kid's running. It's yours. You should have a good speech with this child every time you walk up to this building, which is, if you run out onto the rubber mats, I'm gonna fucking kill you. Like, tell that to the kid. Make sure they know this is life or death here. What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, it's either I'm going to kill you or somebody else will
your
accidentally.
fucking popsicle. Fuck off, But then you go to this. There's another gray area. I think is more common in most gyms. So there's 24-hour gym that I coach some clients out of, and really it kind of is no kids, right? I don't even think you can be there with a personal trainer if you're under the age of
16 usually. Yeah, 14, 16. Yeah.
with a trainer. If you're
Yeah.
16 and older on your own, I think. But that is kind of the norm, in my opinion, in most places that I'm going to go that are like this. But there's a little bit of gray area that I've seen, and I think this is probably the best way to handle that. I've seen parent come in and they got a couple kids that are pretty reasonable in age, but a little younger than maybe you'd want. Let's say 8, 7,
Sure.
8, 9.
Yep.
But they're iPad kids during that hour. They kind of are sitting off in the area where the adults would be putting on their shoes. And as long as you kind of shut the fuck up and stay out of the way, I wouldn't say anything. Wouldn't say much. But then there's a couple of times where the kids are fucking wandering around the floor.
Right.
God damn it. Then you got to say something. And then that person probably can't even come in during that time without finding someone to walk the kids. Then that person doesn't train and you kind of end up losing that client. But what do you do? Because then I had someone else message about, well, can I bring my kid and just leave him there while I go upstairs and do this or that? It's like, no.
Right.
And being a little harder and faster on that rule is probably the way to go if your gym is not truly set up to have like a kids area. But that's me. There's plenty of people who love children way more than I do. Now that my kids are old, I got no patience for some little loudmouth.
Well, and it also it's if you're going to own a space and you're going to have people come into your space and pay you money to be there, it doesn't matter how much you, as the owner, as the leader of that group, whatever your feelings are, ultimately become irrelevant, because now you have to make sure it's all right. Generally, my population is going to feel X about this.
Correct.
And that's what has to guide you. But always know, just make the decision that you feel the most confident about, and then just live with that. Like, don't look back, right? Like, don't look back, don't regret it. It just is, this is what we decide, because people will make a decision based off that. And I'm a perfect example where it was, I had a gym that I was going to that was, big powerhouse type gym, powerlifting. That was the whole thing. It was big, kind of almost like a 24-hour access type spot, but they didn't allow, it was no one under the age of, I think it was like 12, 14, 16. Like, it just was no, period. No.
Yeah.
Like, there was a kids area that was like for tiny tots for the moms when they come in and do like the cardio bunny classes that they had every once in a while. But because it was a hard no, it's, once I learned that another gym across town, 20 minutes away, allowed kids at 8. Like, so now for me, because now it's very unique, because now they can train with me.
Yeah.
And so that was where I was like, oh, well, if I don't have to worry about I don't have to now take my kid to a CrossFit kids class. And if I'm going to train, they can either work out with me. And then if they're capable of doing their thing, which, like, my middle son is big into weightlifting. Well, by the time he was 8 or 9, he could be given a sheet. This is what you're supposed to work out. And then he just fucking does it. And I'm working out. And if he has a question, he comes to me. Hey, what do I do on the sheet? Well, because they allowed that, I moved.
Yep.
I moved that. And it is what it is. And so you'll have some. Now, I'm really unique of wanting to lift the same times that my children are lifting and doing their own thing. But because they gave us that runway to be able to do it, I moved my business there. And so that's definitely where I think, if you're thinking about opening your own spot, you're thinking about doing this, or you've never considered these pieces, look at what's available in your immediate market. Does anyone allow that? Can you stomach allowing something like that? Does anyone have a childcare option?
Yeah. Is your insurance really going to be a problem too as well? This is a factor all the way across the board that, the other one I think is interesting. It's gym dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Dogs in the gym. very common, more so in warehouse or functional facility spaces where there's a lot more room. Normally, you don't see a lot of dogs in global gyms, so it happens. I don't live in a place where everybody's got a damn emotional support animal that they're allowed to bring everywhere with their open buttholes in restaurants and everything like that. But like, you just don't see as much of that here. I honestly believe if I'm trying to operate a professional facility where people are like physically doing hard work, honestly, even more so in the functional fitness business, like the CrossFit affiliate that we had opened, was I don't want fucking animals in there because people are on the ground and getting up and moving around. And, I think it's disgusting. I think you also run into a spot where you have risk of people have a right to have allergies to dogs. And now your place is fucking just, let me make sure I make this clear. I really love dogs. Okay?
Can I tell a story?
The kindest soul I've ever known in my entire life. I brought him into my own gym one time for like one morning thing and had him kind of tied to a post. I would never do it again because immediately I looked at the carpet in the lounge area. I was like, I had to clean so much of everything to get it back to like a professional clean area. You cannot have a dog in your gym. Let's be honest. You cannot have any dog of any real size in your gym for a few hours a day and not have fucking dog hair everywhere. Not have the place be disgusting to the point where you cannot just clean it up like that. That is, you cannot work around that. So it just ends up being a situation where if your place is wanting to be clean, not clinically clean, but should just be clean and professional, ideally for people who want to spend good money and get a high quality product, it can't look like a fucking dirty dungeon with hairballs all wadded up in the corner and slobber all over the place. And
when you say you love dogs, you love dogs.
Of course.
And the reason why, and this is good because you're taking a hard stance of like just professionalism, which is, again, it's irrelevant what my personal opinion is on this topic.
I don't want dogs in my doctor's office either.
And the story, there's the dog, there's a chiropractor in the area that has 2 labs, and the labs come with him to every single appointment. Like every patient he goes see, the 2 labs come in with him. Anyway, so my wife was super stoked because my wife loves dogs. But if you don't love dogs, you would not have been as stoked. But the story I have, so you and I went to go visit a client and they were throwing a big function. It was like a big event. That's why we went up. We were doing a bunch of work with them that weekend. And at the function, someone had a puppy.
Yeah, it was like it was the dog adoption. It was the local, like,
that's right, the SPCA or whatever.
Dude. Yeah.
We were in the corner. We were in the corner of the other side of the gym, and this is a good sized gym. Like, this is a warehouse style type gym, right? Big CrossFit gym. And we're in the corner, and like the puppy and the people walk in on the other side, and you're like, dudes, there's puppy. Like, it just was like immediately like, yes, let's go. Like, I'm gonna go see the puppy. Like, so for sure, it was awesome because it just was whatever we were saying just immediately was interrupted. Be like, dude, we need to go pet these puppies right now.
You guys know they got puppies here. But there is a line of professionalism that I don't know. It's honestly, it's about cleanliness more than anything else. Though I do believe people have every right to be like afraid of a dog, a large dog. And by the way, your dog, no matter who you are, it's fucking way more annoying than you think.
For sure.
Most dogs, much like kids, are not as well behaved or interesting to the general public as they are to the people that are around them every day. And I will also go as far to say the smaller your dog is, the worse it is behaved. Smaller your dog is, the louder it is, the more intrusive it is, the more behavioral stuff that a dog like that is allowed to get away with because it's not big enough to be actually physically dangerous. So these people kind of poorly train these little dogs into thinking they're little fucking pirate princesses and they just fucking run everything. And these dogs are very poorly, they're poorly acclimated to their own pack. Even you have a fucking 6-pound dog that thinks it's king fucking ding dong. You know what I mean? And it's so the behavior thing is always an issue, but it still boils down to cleanliness and professionalism. In my opinion, I am all about it if that's your gym's vibe. The biggest thing that I run into, and I've seen it in gyms all over the world, it's in a gym in Austria that had this, where one coach would bring their dog in and that was all fine. And then, but because that coach was bringing a dog in, like some of the clients would bring their dogs in. And then the gym owner got a dog and would bring that dog in. And well, I hate to break it to you. We got 5 dogs off leash in a gym. The odds of it being loud, annoying, there being piss, fights, like it fucking sucks. And it is distracting from the product. So where is that line? You know, you allow your coach to bring a dog because that dog is going to sit upstairs on the mat and just chill because it seems like it's nearly sedated. Well, that dog's probably fine.
Right.
Not all dogs are fine, no matter what anybody says, especially in a place where you're trying to conduct business. It's just, it can be distracting. And more importantly, it can be annoying. Some people go to your gym to focus on their workout and they want it to be about that. They just don't want everything thrown in their face all the time. They don't want it to be, they don't want their hour to work on their body and their fitness and their socialization to be commandeered by some dog making a yippee scene all fucking day. That sucks. It reduces the ability for the amount of relaxation and decompression and blowing off steam if we're going into the gym and now getting like more irritated. It's kind of the opposite effect that I think a gym should have for people.
Yeah. Now, another one of the rules that I know that we had seen was when it comes to dress code. Now,
Yes.
I saw an article that was, spoiler alert, is out of New York. So we'll lead with that first. But a member at an Equinox gym in Manhattan was asked to leave because he was wearing a shirt with a political figures mugshot
Oh.
and phrase, "Never surrender." The gym's GM deemed the attire offensive and they kicked him out of the gym for wearing
You better
just
have that.
t-shirts.
You better have some sort of no political dressing in your fucking sneaky terms and conditions, please.
Yeah.
That person can come at you legally now for that. That's pretty crazy. And by the way, at this point, couldn't you just make a reasonable conversation about that first? Even politically, be like, you do understand this is going to be divisive. Like, hey, I'm fine with it today, but like, I just don't want this place to like be a place of conflict for other people about this. You know, in the gym I coach out of, we've got probably like 8 or 9 TVs. And especially now that the election's over, but even in the run up to the election, my task every time a new client would come in, I would start them out on the air bike and I go to the remotes and change it all from Fox News and CNN's election coverage to fucking any sport.
TLC.
Just any sport
Yeah.
that I don't care about, just something. And what's it's not alarming to me that when those types of things are on TV and people are sitting on the treadmill that they watch them. What's more alarming to me, John, is that every single day people come in and they go to the remote and choose that at some point.
Sure.
People are going to, so you'll have people, one person on treadmill watching CNN, another person next to them watching Fox News, and they'll like read each other's headlines and start like, you know what I mean, being all performative about their disgust.
Yeah.
And it's fucking crazy. So, but in regards to the political stuff, I mean, in my opinion, don't make any sort of stand. I think that's dumb, but I don't know. You do whatever you want to do, but you want to alienate half the people in your area, you do whatever you want. But in regards to dress code, I go even one step further, which is like appropriateness of the attire or even
Sure.
shirtlessness.
Mhm.
Now,
Depends on the gym.
really like I really like the idea of being able to pop my shirt off mid pump with some mirrors to make sure we're checking it all out, man. What's the fucking point here?
That's why the mirrors are there.
Right? Now I get it. Not everybody's got everything they want. Not everybody wants to take everything and take a look at everything at any time, but some people do. However, I do understand that can be very intimidating to like a normal person to have, like, frankly, usually your most jacked and most confident and most lean people always completely bearing it all, right? That can be very intimidating to a normal person that walks in and knows they don't look like that. And then you have people flaunting it in the thirstiest of ways.
Well, yeah.
But so honestly, if I had to open a global gym again now, my solution to this problem is 100%, not one but 2 full fucking posing rooms. Like, you need full lighting, mirrors, but you need that and I think they need to be very close to the workout area so that you can kind of step off it, because it does matter. I don't care what anybody says. It's not just ego. It matters. And the best gym I ever trained at is Intelligent Strength in Vienna. You can, if you want, you pop your shirt off anywhere in that place. Very rarely does it happen on the workout floor, but like, I don't know, maybe once every 4 or 5 times I'd be in there, someone would be just like doing their work downstairs by the dumbbell rack with their shirt off and then posing in between sets and shit. Like, I get it, but they also had a full posing room as well that you can go into. Covered all the bases, but that place is a little more extreme. It's meant to not quite be for everybody as well. But yeah, the other stuff would be like, you know, I've seen this kind of brought up in discussion is like, well, should women be allowed to train in just sports bras? Right. Which I'm kind of fine with, but I'm a dude. I don't know what to say. In the CrossFit space, normally it's not uncommon for mid workout guys to pop their shirts off, girls to pop their shirts off, and it's
Mhm.
girls training in sports bras and booty shorts, and guys are training in basically booty shorts. Like that kind of is the norm. It was always a running joke is you'd wait once you get 3, 2, 1, go. You got to wait at least 60 seconds before you
Or
start
you start taking your clothes off.
Don't take your shirt off before the workout starts. Make sure it
Yeah.
costs you a little bit of time in your workout, but
Yeah.
that's the sequence that it has to be in. But that also can be pretty intimidating, and I have seen CrossFit and functional fitness gyms that have rules against that stuff as well.
Especially in, go ahead, finish that.
The other one is in martial arts studios. Perfect example, the place we train at, small men's room, small women's room. Tiny little back hallway with some hangers and stuff. Every time I go in, if I'm coming or going, I got to put on or take off my rash guard. Oftentimes I got to change my shorts. So if there's women or kids that are kind of in that back area, I'll step into the office or into the bathroom. So I'm in like undies, but like I'll drop trowel and throw on my stuff. I don't want to do that in front of just normal people, especially if they're new and don't know me.
Right.
But as far as like if I get done with my training and rolling for the day, like I'm gonna take my shirt off because it's slimy and disgusting and sweaty. And then I'm gonna stand there until I get dry enough to like put on something else, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't realize that as something that could be intimidating or even worse, like almost like how would I phrase this? Like, I don't know, like almost like being like sexually creepy.
Well, this is so where I was going was there's another article that talked about the idea where like a lady in the UK, as she's working out, a dude comes up and like asks for her number
Yeah.
right in the middle of her workout. And so they called it like poor gym etiquette, sexism, respecting personal space and boundaries and fitness environments and whatever. But there is that larger thing. We've all seen it, and it's gotten more popular, especially like from the Me Too movement in the States, which kind of luckily, fuck you for however you feel about it. It's like luckily is starting to die down a
Yeah.
smidge here, but it's like that has to be on your radar.
Yeah.
Like if you allow one thing and this idea of like, and there's fucking creeps that are gonna film themselves and film a chick while she's doing like fucking glute ham raises or whatever it is. Like there's gonna be that element where it is that creepy, cringy, ick type thing that's gonna come with it, and you'll welcome it if you're allowing everybody to be naked. It's like, well, you're not allowed to look at me. It's like, oh, okay.
And in our case, like there's times where say for morning class, it's usually such a small group, right? It's like 4 or 5, maybe 6 of us, sometimes 2 or 3. And one of the mornings, one of our college age female students who's still new, doesn't quite know everybody there, comes in. And I think on that class, it was just me and one of our other regular guys.
Yeah.
Well, both of us literally change when we get there and then change afterwards. So this poor girl shows up. She's like waiting outside. So we let in, comes in, and then she's stuck with just 2 dudes for that class. It's like, well, that already is probably like mildly uncomfortable for her. I don't really know these guys. I'm not sure that they're not. And then so I was like, well, fuck, like I have to get changed.
Yeah.
Oh, so like fortunately, Chris and I both like just knew like I don't want to just come in and like pop my shirt off as soon as this girl walks in. Like it is what I normally do though. Like this is I get changed now and then we work out.
Right.
But so it was like before, and I didn't have to say anything to him. He knew as well. It's like, there's a fucking some poor girl here doesn't need us old guys popping our shirts off. So we went and got changed in the set, like in the bathrooms. And the reason we don't normally do that is because you have to get changed with flip flops on because you don't want to put your bare feet onto the piss floor and then take your bare feet onto the mat. So I don't want to have to be doing that like flip flop dance in and out of clothes. Now we did it then, and I think that was probably is the right call. But I think you always need to be aware of that. Like, is this going to creep somebody out? Does somebody think you're being too forward? Do they think it's something is happening that's not? It's a factor, and it's an important factor, and it's less about those of us that are comfortable in being shirtless in public, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's more about those that really are not. Not only that, it's more about those that really are not comfortable in the gym because they feel like they're not enough, or they're not fit enough, or they're not welcome enough, or that they don't belong. They haven't been there enough to know everybody and to look good enough. Like that sucks for somebody like that to go in and they're already doing this bad comparison game that makes them feel like like shit. It's already hard enough for them to come into a place that maybe they feel like they aren't the same as everybody else. And then you got your hottest people looking the hottest and wearing the least. Like
Yep.
it's tough unless they're there to just look at hot people. Props, but I think that is a thing that starts to, if you don't have problems, then fine. But what happens is if this is a loose matter of non-policy, anything can start to happen. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I've been in the 24-hour gym. I'm the only person there.
Sure.
I'm like, you got a pretty nice pump. Should be nice for a photo. Lighting's perfect out here. I just don't do it on the off chance someone comes in or that someone is maybe upstairs or something. It's like, yeah, whatever. Don't be that guy. So yeah, off to the bathroom for the off to the bathroom for those. But I think maybe that's the deal. Same thing with filming is that, like, listen, you don't need to have a rule about any of these things if things all kind of happen in a way that's appropriate. But at some point, you're going to probably need to establish a standard that you can enforce. It's a matter of policy. It's communicated directly, not just snuck into terms and conditions, but communicated directly so that everyone can agree upon it, so that becomes a cultural factor within your gym. Because otherwise, what can happen will happen, and over a long enough timeline, you're going to start running into trouble, and then you're going to have to enforce these things as rules when they're not necessarily rules, and you're going to have somebody being positioned as the bad guy who wasn't the bad guy, who just didn't know that it was against some unspoken rule. In the opposite of what we have, one of the martial arts, one of the like MMA gyms in Sioux Falls, they have their policy really is you do not have your shirt off unless you're in the changing room. We have change room, go in the locker room and get changed. But if you're out here in the main area, and it literally is just so like you're not intimidating anybody or being thirsty or whatever this is, like you want to get changed, you go there. We're not walking around here all jacked and pumped and doing a bunch of alpha high tea shit with our shirts off while there's people coming and going. It's unprofessional. It's not a part of, it doesn't have to have a part of the environment. But I've also been in gyms where fucking we're straight grappling shirtless and slimy, bro. Like it don't give a fuck. So you have to be, whatever your stance is on any of these things, it is in your best interest to communicate them.
And I've talked about this rule before, but it's always like Y cubed. Like if you're gonna never make a rule for the exception, I learned that long ago, right? If it really is not a major problem and it's a thing where it's like it's not even 1% of your population is having this issue, don't make a rule. Like don't make a rule for everybody. Like you talk to those individual people, but as you decide what you want your rules to be, what you want your terms to be, what you want the vibe to be, it's why. Like why don't you want to allow tripods in the gym? You don't want to allow people to set up a phone and set up a camera and do all that shit on a tripod, right? Well, why?
And is it just because it's annoying and maybe you don't like how much a person is putting themselves out there, or you're like doing because a lot of the anti-filming stuff is actually like just haters. It's gym haters who will look at somebody who's filming. Who wants to fucking watch this person fucking live? Like I would say honestly, like 80% of it is that. The other 20% of the complaints about that I think are very valid, which is privacy. I don't want to be in your video. And the other one is people that are using those videos to actually call out other people around the gym. Like it's actually them truly a bad guy instead of, accidental.
And as long as you take it, and why I say Y cubed is you ask why, and then whatever your answer is, well, then keep asking why until you can kind of get to like the core of whatever it is. The reason why I think it's a solid rule, no matter what you want to do, or solid principle to follow, no matter what rules, whatever you want to enact, is your gym may want to be the place where we're going to take our shirts off. You're going to play death metal. You're going to have a big pit bull or Canet Corsos that are walking around, and it is we're going to fucking sacrifice a goat after every workout. I'm all about that. But the why, right? Your sequence of why am I going to allow that? Because it's going to attract the right people and it's going to repel the people I don't want. And I know I don't want those people. So if you're going to feel threatened by toxic masculinity, well, then get fucked. You got a lot of other gyms you can go to. So just knowing what the end result of what you want, like what's the intended response that you want, where if it is a safety, I don't want to have a camera, because if I don't have cameras and I don't have people filming like that, then I don't have to worry about a young lady feeling threatened that now she's being filmed secretly. Now I don't even have to deal with it. And if
Yeah,
you don't want to have,
exactly.
and you can avoid, and that's a lot of times where it's like, are you going to mitigate future problems and what those problems could be? Where I'm not going to deal with problems of sexism or issues of people feeling like someone's coming on to them and they don't feel safe whether they're in their spot. If I don't allow a lot of these things to happen, I can kind of contain a lot of that.
Yeah.
And if you allow all of it, then you just know, okay, and these are things that I may have to deal with
You
because
just
it
have to
is
be ready for some fallout.
exactly
And one of the another like subject along the same lines is like things like slamming weights, dropping weights,
yeah,
slamming bars. That's it's perfectly reasonable in my opinion, though I don't particularly do it on like a big PR deadlift. There's really no reason for me to drop the weight.
right.
Right. Most people, if you actually are a decent deadlifter, you know you're going to deadlift in a meet. You don't get to drop it from the top. You know what I
Right.
mean, you're going to pull it up. Also, for the sake of safety, there's a whole nother. There's the coaching side of it, which is the same amount of force I'm using to hold it up. Once I let go of the weight, there's a spring effect there, which
Yeah.
I just don't think that that's worth the risk either. It's silly, but I also things happen. But it's less about deadlifting and really heavy weights and more about, I'd say, like Olympic weightlifting, people dropping especially weights from overhead. All your Olympic weightlifting bars and all of your bumper plates are fully capable of handling that impact without taking too much damage or wear and tear. That's not a problem about the weights. No matter what anybody says, as long as they're not steel weights, if they're using bumper plates, you're fucking fine in regards to the equipment.
Right.
But in a gym that is, say, we've had this happen at the 24-hour spot, you'll get like people come in and they'll be doing like clean and jerks or something with bad technique and they'll drop it from overhead every rep, John. Every rep. Well, you're in there at 8:30 in the morning. There's me and maybe that person doing that are the only people under the age of 65.
Right.
Treadmill people, there's people walking, there's people over there just kind of like pulling on cable machines, and it is fucking loud and it is fucking annoying. And if that's a thing that you want to be doing, while there's maybe not anything wrong with it inherently, like if I just screamed at the end of every set,
You give somebody a heart
like at
attack.
the end of every set, it'd be like, well, this guy's fucking annoying.
He has
Right?
Tourette's. Yeah.
Not because it's inappropriate, it's just loud.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want to draw a hard line where we're like, you can't be banging plates, because you guys have seen those viral videos where someone's being pretty reasonable, like basically just doing like touch and go deadlifts, but of it hitting the thing, like some fucking normie walks over. I saw one like snatch the headphones off the guy while he was deadlifting and try to get in his ear. I would drop the weight, fucking lash out immediately. First off, I'd lash out like the brother on There's Something About Mary when he touched his ears. Like, don't touch my fucking earmuffs, bro. You come into my head, you snag my headphones out, I'm gonna fucking kill you before you get to ask any questions, for sure. But you don't want that to be the line either, right? Where it's like you can't even bang them down. That's crazy. So at some point you need to be reasonable. And I would say the biggest thing is you cannot have your clients out there thinking that they have the authority to impose any sort of to enforce any of these rules.
Yeah.
To me, if I hear you going up and talking about one of my clients about a rule that you think they're breaking, fuck you. Like, you're not the authority around here either. That is, in the real world, that is impersonating an officer, bro. Like, you don't get to come in and act like you're in charge around here, because you ain't nobody that they're not either.
And you have to be careful too. If you are the manager, if you're the GM, if you're the owner, and you have a spot and you have rules, you have to be able, you want to enforce those rules, but you got to keep your hall monitors in check. Yeah. And it's very important, because we all know, and God damn you if you're one of these people, but if you give people that are used to not having power and you allow them to feel empowered and to feel validated that they can now exercise that power over somebody else, they will become queen cunt or king cunt to every person. And you do not want that type of shit going on, because that's how cliques form. That's how the entire ecosystem and community vibe that you want can get killed and overran and then held hostage by people that are awful. So you can get ahead of those things by making sure that you are, one, if you got rules, fucking make sure you're making sure those rules are being followed. And then definitely keep people that feel empowered, shut that shit down.
What about other little penalties? I heard this, I don't know if this still happens, but I talked to a gym owner many years ago who owned a 24-hour gym. And if any weights were not put away back on the rack, go back, she would check the video and it would penalize that person, I think maybe like $10 anytime it happened for any weight. And it would automatically charge. It was like told in their thing. That was the agreement. And there were weights left out. Someone would let her know, just scroll back. She would just print money off of these fucking things all day. And the people knew. And there's a part of me that's like, that kind of rules. And another part of me is like, no, put more signs up, remind people a little more. But I don't know. I thought that was a very novel approach. I feel like that's very labor intensive. But if you got nothing else to do, but just scroll back through your cameras and assign yourself more money, I guess it's probably worth the time. But
so because we follow so many gyms, of just keeping eyes on all different types of gyms. So we follow a ton, and I cannot, like, they pop up in our feed all the time for different things. And it is, I don't know who the person is that's the owner, but they're so catty about stuff like this.
I hate
and so it's so what they did one time on this exact thing was people weren't racking their weights. So the gym owner had all of the coaches, before they signed off that night, pulled every dumbbell off the racks onto the floor and then closed up for the night. And then when they opened up the next day, made the clients that came in put them all back.
Nice.
I was like, holy shit. Like, it was, and then
like McDonald's doing that to you. Like, yeah, you were a little messy last time you're here. So fortunately, your booth is full of fucking trash for you to sit in.
And then they posted on social. It's the only reason why I know. Because then they're like, because people don't know how to be able to clean up their stuff, like, it's like, this is what we did. And I was like, oh my God. Like, and I've seen, they are not the only ones. I've seen people do the same thing with, like, you're a sandbag gym.
Yeah.
So if you have lots of those pieces and people aren't putting them away they were supposed to, it's like the same thing. They like dragged out all the shit and like spread it all out so people couldn't use it. It's like, oh my God.
I think using your social media to complain about any of your clients' behaviors or make any complaints about things that are going on in your gym, that is not used for outreach for your internal messaging, your internal problems within your gym. Your emails like that, your direct contact is like that. Like I said, your email list can accomplish the same thing. All your members will see it.
Yep.
But you know who's not going to see it? Anyone who's considering doing business with you, who now won't be because you come off like a fucking dickhead.
Yes,
It's the amount of, I see so much of that. There used to be more than I could possibly count. I've seen gyms do it about, I remember one gym owner, and he's not, since doesn't own his facility anymore because I think he just gave up because of all this stuff. Literally posted a reel on Instagram. It's like, you know what I like, sarcasm. Like, you know what I like the most about being a gym owner?
Oh no. Yeah.
And he goes and zooms in onto the corner of his mat, like the jujitsu mat, right? And there is a Band-Aid that must have fallen off of somebody's thing that's sitting there. And he goes there and grabs and goes, people just leave this out, and he walks it over, and this video of him throwing this Band-Aid. And like, do you know what that says to people that are considering maybe joining your gym? It's like, one, you're a bitch about this, first off. Two, like, yeah, we get it, sucks, but now people know, like, gross, there's Band-Aids and blood, and they just lay on them. Like, now you're a place where this happens. And apparently it happens so frequently that the gym owner needs to passive aggressively complain about it. It's unbelievable. I've seen gym owners post that about people being late as well. I've seen them post it about fucking people being messy, chalk stuff, like leaving chalk. You need to clean this up. It's not this fucking hard. And it's wipe down your machines. All this is discussed. All you're doing is showing the worst parts of your gym to the entire world. And I think that's a huge fucking problem when people make that a publicity issue. I remember a martial arts studio. Fortunately, I think it's a gym that's like mostly like competitive and competitors, and it's like a guy's pet project. I don't think he's worried about trying to make this into a fully profitable fact, because you got to get a bunch of normies if you're going to make a jiu-jitsu gym work,
right?
You got to get a bunch of them. But he had made these like wanted posters for all of his members who haven't been around in a while, who have disappeared for a couple months. If you see it said like where they work, you see him at Menards, make sure you let him know we're wondering where the hell he is, and blah 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 blah. And while that's funny,
awesome, that's
not going to attract them to come back, I don't think. And two, it's not going to attract anyone to come in, because anyone who starts a new thing usually reserves the right to like fall off and You know,
Yeah.
like, they're like, I don't know if this can be my thing. I want to try it and maybe give it a chance, but if it doesn't work, no big deal. Well, now you're like, if it doesn't work, this guy's going to make fun of me on social media and tell people we're at work. Fuck. That's harsh. That's really harsh.
Back to the Band-Aid thing. So the idea that like it's if you're getting a spot, like we're big on you want to have systems and things that you have in place that allow you to maintain quality control. And probably like the whole essence of this entire episode is professionalism in what the rules that you're trying to put in place, how you're trying to foster community, what type of community you're trying to foster, like all those different pieces, who you're trying to attract. But you want to have like things will not just happen because one, if you are the gym owner, you're the solopreneur, you're the main person that's trying to get things done, it'll get done because no one will ever care more about your business than you do. No one, no person that you will ever hire, your spouse will not care about it as much as you do. It's your thing, it's your baby. And you will, if you're good, you will make sure that all your shit is always covered. You will be the one fixing the fucking toilets in the early days. You're going to be the one buying the toilet paper. You're going to be the one doing all those things because you want to make sure that it's up to the standard that you have established, how you feel about it. But as you grow, you have to put, right, like SOPs, like standards of procedure. You have to put these checks and balances always into your system when you're no longer the one that's doing it. So if you have a gym owner, if you have a coach, you're going to give them a little bit of administrative duties and they need to do social media. They need to make sure that the equipment's being wiped down. They need to be doing the ones that, hey, the spray bottles and the towels are clean. They've been washed. They're now here. There's now stuff for like all of those things that you just naturally did because you are fucking good at what you do. Other people won't do just naturally. And so it's the hardest transition whenever we work with a gym owner to make that transition where you're the one doing all the doing. Now you've hired somebody. Now you have to be the one doing the managing. And that's not a natural thing. If you haven't managed humans, that it's like, don't they just understand? Like, this is common sense. Every time you think that, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
You do not, come on. You interact with humans around your community. How many of those people have fucking common sense?
Like less than half.
Like, it's shocking.
Even the smart ones.
Yeah. It's just like, what the fuck? How are you even? So anyway, so if you don't have these systems in place, this is what happens. So last couple of weeks, right? A tragic discovery happens at Planet Fitness. So in Indianapolis, Planet Fitness, right? They have a tanning bed. They have tanning beds that are in there. A dude died in the tanning booth. No one was aware for 3 days. It wasn't until people started to smell the decaying body in the tanning booth that they were aware that a dead dude has been in there for 72 hours plus.
Now, my first thought is this, as the way most things go, common sense wise, is every person who's there, who's an employee or who's cleaning, knows if the tanning bed door is locked, somebody's in there likely nude, which means we don't hassle them. We probably don't even knock on the fucking door. If that shows red occupied, we move right on, right? So if I'm cleaning 10 tanning bedrooms, that one's locked. I clean 9 that day. My shift's over. I leave. Right? It's pretty common. I think that that's exactly how it would go, and that everybody, and at some point, all of those are going to be occupied or not. So I'd be willing to bet that nobody even was hip to the fact that that thing had been locked for 3 days. I think it is very likely that everybody just kind of went, oh, well, maybe someone just got in, or they just weren't aware of it. They were not concerned. That's exactly how these things happen. Somebody else's problem. I don't got to clean it. Great. Home run. Nobody was really thinking about what could have been going on in there. And I think they found like a syringe. I think it was like a heroin overdose.
Yeah, it was drug overdose.
Drug overdose in the tanning bed, and then just out. Also, one of the things they kind of implied in the way that one of the wording of one of the articles I read was like, as though he was like cooking in there for 3 days. You know what I mean?
Like, tanning booth never turned off.
Tanning bed that ran for 3 days. The way I read it, that's kind of what I first took away from it. It's like he was in a tanning bed for 3 days, and it was the smell. And it almost had everything but burning flesh. You know what I mean? But yeah, man, I don't know. I see how that can happen. There's parts of my house where
I haven't been in there.
Someone's dead in my closet, man. I may not know until the smell. happens too.
But have the systems, right? So like I promise you, Planet Fitness there is going to put in some new things, which is before you walk in, you're gonna put your name, you're gonna say the time you went in, and then you got to sign out when you come out. And if we go by that door and say, hey, Jim signed in earlier today and he hasn't signed out yet, and nobody else has been inside this room,
Yeah.
we better go check on Jim.
Let's go see his fucking charred PP now. Now, also, I'd be willing to bet that that process does exist, but we've seen this a lot on simply just sign-in stuff like that for gyms.
Yeah.
A lot of gyms had to have sign-in procedures for COVID to make sure they had their capacity stuff, and they kind of have just held them over, but not ever enforced them or done anything with them, which is very, very, very common now that people's like signing into classes or signing into the gyms is a very loose process that is not enforced and not really paid attention to. It's almost arbitrary at this point. And this is kind of what happens when you have a process like that that you don't commit to. You know, I mean, like, yeah, well, we really don't know anything about who is anywhere for anything. Like, well, then why are we bothering making everybody write their fucking name down then? Who gives a fuck? Either do it or don't. We'll just find a body once every 10 years, and maybe that's worth the hassle. Listen, if I got to not sign my name and write down a time every time I walk into a place, but the caveat is like, listen, every decade, that didn't kill the guy either.
No,
Just
right.
every decade, a guy's going to get a couple extra days of decomposition before we find him in here. But like, if that means I don't have to fill any of that out, or if I'm the gym owner, it means, man, I don't have to read any of this shit. I don't have to go through this with it. I don't have to train an employee on how this process works and how to file it at the end of his shift and sign off. Like, maybe I'm willing to take that shot. But I bet you Indianapolis, that Planet Fitness really wishes this is not good publicity for them.
No.
Even though honestly, none of it is probably their fault.
Zero of it is
Totally an innocent mistake. They didn't kill that guy.
Yeah.
They didn't kill that guy.
But now we are talking about you, Planet Fitness in Indianapolis,
Not in
because
the
you
best way.
you have a barbecued OD that's inside your facility. And now that room is that's the tanning bed.
Oh, I remember one of the gyms we work with that's just sent out some new like terms and conditions too, like an updated thing. And one of the things you have to agree on, which is absolutely no steroid use or injections to be done on site. It's like, well, first off, also that idea that people are injecting steroids or taking steroids at the gym.
Yeah.
The only people who think that's the case are people who've never done or been around steroids and don't know how they work. Because there's no reason to inject yourself in the ass at the gym. It just seems like you got to bring more stuff to the gym, and you can just do it at home or the day before or the next day. Like I don't understand. Like, so this is obviously like it's the steroids equivalent. This is of people like on a 40-year-old version where they're like, anyway, so it's like bags of sand, right?
Yes, exactly.
And that's kind of how I felt. I'm reading this and I was like, oh boy, thank God we got that epidemic sorted out. Like, as though everybody who's on the sauce has to bring it to the gym because that's when they work the best.
And you can have fun and again, all this stuff, like it's serious pieces, but then those types of things, there's opportunities. Like the one thing that I enjoy most about hearing your stories about Intelligent Strength, right, out of Austria, is the fact that like in the bathrooms, right, are vending machines for creatine or for like it's
their lockers did not have a number. It had a name either of a steroid or of an action star, action movie hero. That's it. You know, Charles Bronson, your locker that day, the one you used is Charles Bronson, or mine is, Winstrol. Okay. Well, now I know when to come back. It's way more interesting than I'm A4. I got to remember A4, 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 A4 all session. I remember, okay, I'm at locker A4. No, Charlie Bronson today, buddy. Like that rules.
There's elements where you can have fun with it. And again, if you're a gym in that same space where they're like, we don't allow injection, every once in a while where you see like a McDonald's is arguing with an Arby's across the street with their signs, just be like, we proudly support injections in our bathrooms at our gym. Like, it's whatever. Like you're allowed to be able to have fun with these things. And again, it's all about who are your people. And that's where just remember that either you can derail it with the rules and trying to be too much of a Karen or too much of a hall monitor, or you can embrace some of these things. And it's like, what are the actions and behaviors you want from your people? And you really can foster those things. And just be aware, what are you putting out into the universe, especially via social, of Who do you want to attract? What do you want to show people?
Yeah, I agree. Well, it was a nice little discussion today, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. You want more, make sure you follow the show, subscribe to the show, and leave us a review on Spotify, Apple, or wherever it is that you're listening. Make sure you're following the show at the Gym Owners Podcast on Instagram. We do have on YouTube. We're trickling out some of the older episodes as well. So look up the Gym Owners Podcast on YouTube. Follow me at Tyler Stone. That's Tyler EFF Stone. And John.
And you can follow me on Instagram at jbanksfl.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next week.